Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be reviewing the Tenable Knives Beaver. This knife comes in 5 different variations. You can get it with this purple and black G10 stonewash blade. There's some other G10 variations. You can get it with a coated blade, and they have some with aluminum scales that look awesome as well. It's a nice full-size EDC knife at 7.99 inches overall. It has a 3.44 inch drop point blade. Like I said, raw stone wash finish, so that should hide wear very well. You have a nice top swedge that thins out that tip some, giving you a nice fine tip there. Great for doing precision cutting. And this is going to be a pretty versatile blade shape here, because that tip just barely sits above the center line of the scales. I can use the tip fairly easy without going up too high, or you can just use the belly depending on how intricate you need to get. But it's also going to be great for piercing because it's already almost in the center line. So if you had to go into a bag of potato chips, you could do that rather easily. No jipping up top, but a nice flat spot to rest your thumb. Dual thumb studs that are pretty much out of the cutting path, because whenever I start my cut, by the time I get to there, I'm going to be about probably right there. So unless you're doing push cuts right there, they should stay out of the way. I've never had any issues with anything getting hung up on thumb studs. Never. But that's just me. Your blade steel on this one is Nitro V stainless steel. It's a good budget steel. It holds a decent edge. It's fairly tough. It's got good corrosion resistance. And it takes a screaming sharp edge. That edge has good toughness as well. Your blade stock thickness on this one's a pretty chunky 0.13 inches. You have a mid-height flat grind that they still managed to get down to around 18 thousandths at the thinnest portion. So as long as it's sharp, it should slice well, and we're going to find out. This one came with an okay edge out of box. It cuts phone book paper decently, and I wouldn't say it's hair shaving sharp. But you know, as long as it gets through everything, I'm fine with it. You should have some good versatility. It's slicing well through the cardboard. I won't really know for certain how good the edge is until I get to some of those more fibrous materials, or at least to like the sisal rope. At least on here, it's catching the wood. You know, if it was a dull edge, it would skate off the wood. So not bad. And it was comfortable. This knife was comfortable all the way to about midpoint. Whenever I started increasing that pressure, I could feel the pocket clip ramp and the edges of the scales. They weren't hot spot, but they would probably become one over a long period of time. This pinch grip was comfortable. You got a good bit of belly to do these cuts on a flat cutting surface. And even though it's not as sharp as I would like, it's still managing to get through the 1/2 inch sisal rope. But I will say I am putting a lot more pressure into the cuts, and it's these type of knives that give me the blisters. So I wasn't the happiest camper after I finished doing this portion of the testing. I shut it down. Sorry about that. But once again, it got through it. Not the easiest, but easy enough. I'm going to probably lower the edge angle back anyway. I usually like to put my Tenables to about 18 degrees per side, depending on where they started from, just so I don't have a ginormous edge bevel or anything. And I will say, every single Tenable that I've tested and sharpened up after the fact performed next level after I finished sharpening it up. Your tip's low enough to do these detailed drag cuts, and it did it very well. It's thin enough because of that swedge, and it performed good. You know, like I said, it wasn't the sharpest, and it's not the thinnest Tenable I've ever gotten, but it still managed to do all these tests rather well. But it will do a lot better once I put my own edge on it, and that's been the case, like I said, for every one of them. But it was enjoyable nonetheless. So I thought it performed good. It wasn't the sharpest Tenable I've ever gotten, but that's fine. I can put my own edge on it, which I'm gonna after this video anyway. Let's talk about the ergos real quick. I call them pretty good, and I say pretty good just because where this G10 ends, it's not sharp, but it could be knocked off a little bit more. And of course, that's a quick fix with some like 400 grit sandpaper, or even 800. Just barely hit it, round it like that some. Does it have to be done out of box? No, Not unless you're really going to be squeezing hard, pushing hard. And it might even bother you. For me, I could feel it just because my hands are more beat up than most. Especially right here where these two sides intersect at that point. Like I said, you can see how it's almost a 90-degree edge right there. Now, it's not sharp, like I said, but it wasn't the most comfortable when I was really bearing down. Now, you have peel ply here, purple up top, black underneath, black G10 backspacer. I usually don't like seeing these larger choils like that because my fingers are either going to land in between them like that, which I got lucky and they do, or be landing right on the middle of that and it's going to be a little uncomfortable. Being that they left this flat, I was also able to choke up. And it's nice and wide right here, so it fills out the hand nicely. I was able to get a lot of force into the wood. You know, this pull grip, there's no flipper tab or anything. It's fairly comfortable. And the reverse gas station knife fight grip, comfortable because of this flat spot if you want to stick it into a log or something. Your scales have a contoured feeling because of the deep chamfers. That's where you see in the black right here. So there goes, I'm calling them pretty good. Let's talk about the deployment on this one. So this one is an adjustable crossbar lock. You have 3 tension settings for those Omega springs, 3 little holes in there. You have dual thumb studs. Now the thumb studs are pretty close to the scales, as you see there. But where my fingers sit, I can get underneath there. It's a nice positive flip. Reverse flick, I can do that as well. Probably easier to do thumb flick because reverse flick, I got to make sure I'm getting underneath it. Now, if you had large hands or extra large hands, you may, I'm not sure, but it seemed like being how low these studs are, you'd have to reposition your hand to get underneath them. But I can't say that for certain. Or you could use the crossbar to deploy it as well. Super smooth action, riding on ceramic bearings. And I think the Omega spring tension that was set from factory out of the box, I think it's perfect on my particular knife at least. It's not like super floppy. Now, I could, of course, get it out, but not overly easy. But if you need to, you could increase the tension on it. Your hardware is Torx T8 everywhere except for the pocket clip screws, which are T6. I'm good with that. The liners on this one are coated black. The peel ply on this purple gives it the perfect amount of traction without being overly aggressive. You have a tip-up deep carry pocket clip. It's not inset into the G10. However, they did countersink those screws. I wish they would have rounded it over a little bit more. I could see it getting caught on something. It hasn't yet, but now I could kind of feel this clip. It is pretty high right here. I could feel it, but it wasn't burying into my palm or anything, but I think they could have brought this down just a little bit or shortened this clip up some. But you do have a ton of room to fit pretty much any pants. And it's going to sit fairly deep. All you're going to have is this crown sticking up to where if you did want to carry a lanyard, it will sit above the seam. And like I said, it is reversible. Your centering is right down the pipe. And if you look in here, they have heavily pocketed out those stainless steel liners on the top and bottom to reduce weight and to help balance the knife out. Bringing it to 116.9 grams or 4.13 ounces. I'm good with it. And your balance point is absolute perfection right there at the front of that choil. So it's going to feel lighter than that 4.13 ounces. It's very nimble in hand because of that. It's not going to be blade heavy or butt heavy. And the lockup on that crossbar lock, rock solid. There's no slide up and down. There's absolutely no movement in that pivot. And you still have a extremely smooth action. Now time for some quick size comparisons. Here it is next to the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. Here it is next to the Tenable Cryo and the Tenable Ray, and the Tenable Eagle Strike and the Tenable Prometheus. And it's very similar in length to the QSP Ripley and the Kaiser Militao. Now being that absolutely no knife's perfect, what are my nitpicks and complaints? I think they could have softened the edges just a little bit more from factory. It's not terrible, but it would have been a lot more comfortable in my opinion. Maybe brought this ramp down some because I can feel that in my palm. It wasn't terrible, but I could definitely feel it. I'm not too sure why they put them this far in front right there because they could have cleared it by putting the thumb stud back here. And I think it would have been a little bit easier to get to them. Now, maybe it was something to do with just the way it was flipping because of this. I don't know. It just feels like they're awfully low to me. Look at the Cryo. See how high that is? You know? I don't know why they decided to go that far. The only thing I can think of, I guess it's in the middle right now of the choil. but I think they could have went up some and it would have still kept it far enough away. I don't know. I'm not a knife engineer, so I couldn't say, but I think it would have been nice, a little bit nicer, maybe for people with large, extra large hands, because it's in the right spot for me, but it may be a little low for somebody with large or extra large hands. And maybe inset that pocket clip. But other than that, you know, if none of that stuff's a deal breaker, you got a good sharpening choil on this one. Should have some sharpening light before to widen on you. You got great action. You got a pretty versatile blade. I like the overall aesthetics of it. It's comfortable enough in my opinion. And the G10 variations come in at 50 bucks. And then if you want to get one of the aluminum versions, that is $7 more at 57. So if you're interested in picking up a Tenable Knives Beaver, and you want to help support the channel, you can use my links down in the description. That helps me pay for my testing materials. Can't thank you enough. If not, no sweat at all. So that's going to wrap up today's video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below and I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every one of y'all is having a fantastic day today. And remember, keep these blades sharp. Smile more.